Yes, good evening, everybody, and I welcome you to Africa Elta August webinar. Yes, I'm Blessing Apom, Professional Development Coordinator for Africa Elta. And with me here today, I have Abel, the Assistant Professional Development Coordinator for Africa Elta. And I also have Irene Manganga. She's the Secretary for Africa Elta for the second time. So we have the great privilege of having her here today to moderate the session. Just some little notice for us while the session is going on. We will appreciate that we all keep our mics muted, and please be respectful to everyone's comments. Please do not interrupt the presentation. At the end of our presenters' webinar today, we will have some time for us to ask questions, and you can always use the chat box to ask your questions ahead, and these questions will be attended to at the end of the webinar. So right now, I'm so excited to hand over to Irene Maganga to read Erick's bio and moderate today's session. Thank you very much, Irene. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much. Blessing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me clearly. This depends on where you're joining us from. Welcome to today's webinar, and thank you for making time to be here on this wonderful session. Today's webinar is on empowering English teachers for large and low resource classes, which is very relevant to us in African context, since most teachers and low resources. So today's session is very important as we will get a chance to discuss and have some solutions to this problem. So let me introduce our speaker. So Erick Ceceliano Matamoros is an English teacher from Costa Rica. He has been working for 14 years at MEP. He got his SIT TESOL certificate workshop presenter in a country coordinator for Global Education Network Costa Rica. So Erick, you're very welcome, and the floor is yours. Welcome.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. Happy, I'm so excited for being here with all of you. Can you hear me? That's okay? No problem?
Yes, we can hear you, Erick. Please go ahead.
So, as I said before, I'm so excited to share my experiences in resource classes. For sure, we do face those problems every day in our teaching process, and that's something we need to know how to overcome those challenges. I had the experience to visit Egypt. I learned a lot from my friends there, and also from Egyptian teachers, and also teachers from Nigeria, Cameroon. And now they are my friends as you. And actually, it's very experiences as teachers. Now, I would like to share my presentation. Okay, so here we go. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it, Erick. Great.
Okay, so there I have my presentation. So let's see. Can you hear me? That's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this presentation was actually I went there to enjoy this conference in here. Okay, because something is happening. Let's see. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay. Okay, there we go. Let me fix this. Okay, let me. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, it's because something is not working here. Okay, so let's see. Here we go now. So let's go back. And now, here we go. Now, empowering teachers, teaching large and low classes. Okay, so it was my teaching in Egypt. And it was very interesting because I learned from all teachers' experiences as well. So maybe I thought that in Costa Rica, there was a problem with that, but I figured out that not only Costa Rica, countries as well. So we are facing those situations. Now, it's very important to see what kind of strategies, what kind of methods we can implement our students, and also to motivate colleagues, and also to motivate teachers as well. This one was my topic for one of my mini projects. Okay, actually, I have 5 mini projects to work with my kids since school to high school, but I want to concentrate on one, and I will. Okay, so there we have that presentation, and here we go. Now, the main idea behind this presentation, as I said before, teaching large and low strategies and approaches that enable educators to provide quality education, as I said before, in challenging lack of adequate materials, infrastructure, and resources. And that's the main problem we
Sorry,
face.
sorry, Eric, if I may just sorry to interrupt a bit, but I think your audio keeps
Uh-huh.
breaking off. I would like to suggest if you can probably turn off your video. This might likely help the situation, so we can benefit from your presentation and hear
Okay,
you
like that.
properly. Yeah, can turn off your video. Thank you.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
okay. Now, can you see my slide? Well, that's the first one.
yeah. Thank you. We can.
Okay, okay, you're welcome. Now, something good about this teaching context often applies to region global connectivity. Now, as you know, in Costa Rica, the main language is Spanish. Say that English is a second language here, so students learn English. It's supposed as a second language, but it's not like the real environment to improve our English as a second language. Now, what about the key goals? And I'm going to stay in the first slide. So what about the key goals when teaching large and low resource classes? As many students as possible have access to this, which is very important for their futures. Quality education, providing a high standard of education despite limitations. Innovate teaching, something we need to keep in mind. Okay, so what I'm gonna do next? Okay, so as a teacher, so I need to be, so what methods I'm going to apply to motivate my students in my classes? And that's something important. So we need to be creative every single day. We need to look for websites. We need to look for platforms, educational platforms that make our classes more interactive for our students. And that way, we are going to motivate students' engagement. And also, we are going to improve their development in the classes. Community involvement, that's very important. And actually, my project to family, to the learning process, not only teachers, not only students. And finally, teacher support. Now, why not my colleague can share one strategy, and that strategy can help me in the future. Kind of meetings, and we can share strategies. And that's something we are going to have with this presentation. Now, okay, let me move on to the next one. Okay, there we go. Why I decided to talk about the English curriculum in Costa Rica. Well, maybe you can have an idea about, okay, in Costa Rica, they try to, or in Costa Rica, they are doing this. But what about, or what is similar? Or what about differences, okay, between the English curriculum in Costa Rica? A overview, so I can tell you that the English syllabus for bilingual schools is intended to develop learners' communicative competences. Now, simply learning grammar and vocabulary. It emphasizes the ability to effectively use language in real life. Communication situations, including speaking, listening, reading, and writing as well. Knowledge, why not prior experiences, skills, and abilities. And remember, values not only from high school, from schools, also from their families. So we can talk about critical thinking. We can talk about problem solving, collaboration, digital literacy, and and the last important detail, innovate teaching methodologies. This one, the implementation of innovate communicative language teaching methodologies, which is essential, active student participation, authentic language use, and meaningful interaction in the classroom. Now, I have a question for all of you. So let's move on to my third slide. It says, what strategies have worked for you in your classes? Okay, so feel free if you have had this situation. Classes. So type your experiences. How did you overcome those challenges in your classes? Okay, so let me comments. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I just want to take a look in the chat. Okay, there we okay. Okay, I'm back now. Okay, let me know about your strategies. Let me know what you did to overcome those. Okay, let me see if we have a comment in the chat. Okay, there we have group works. Okay, assignment. Okay, so that can be very useful. And as I said before, collaborative. Okay, so in this case, remember that we have something which is called a collaborative learning, and that's very useful in these situations. Okay, more ideas, more comments, you as a teacher in your classrooms. Okay, very good. Okay, concept map on the board and substitution tables, okay, group projects. Yeah, and actually that can be, well, we cannot say, okay, so we need to do something. We need to think fast in the class. So my group has, or my classroom has a, okay, and so what can I do with that class? So I cannot even think teaching individually. Okay, remember that that's very important because our students have different levels of learning. But what circumstances? It says a dialogue, maybe to discuss about something. Okay, Linda says group work, which is very important for sure. Okay, here we have in my context, they designed new curriculum in English, but it doesn't take into account borrow videos from the net, photos to, for sure. Yeah. Actually, in this case, using images, as Deborah said, actually, it's very useful because you are going to have your students paying attention to you. And that's it. And then you can ask direct questions. And that's, thank you very much. Now, let's take those comments and let's take those strategies and let's put, I am going to talk about. So let me continue. Okay, there we have the next one. Now, in our English curriculum, okay, so what kind of challenges? There we have limited resources, overcrowded classrooms, language barriers, in our case, well, Spanish, our first language, Arabic, and maybe different countries, so English as a second language, diverse student needs, as I said before, so we cannot even think teaching individually because of large classes, but we need to know student has a his or her different level of learning, limited access to technology. You have a projector, or you can have one activity in common, you can use it. For example, in my case, well, I I I needed to buy my own projector for my classes. Okay, why? Because my high school didn't have one of them. Even for me, my high school has one, but all teachers need it at the same time, and that's a problem. So maybe in class using the projector, but when you get to your high school, the projector is not available for you. And there is a problem because you need to think about something else. And you can have, or you need to have your own devices if you want to work with technology in your classes. Even Ethernet. Okay, so we are not expecting that our high school or the government provide us Ethernet. Okay, so we need to find out the way to have that access to internet. And after that, technology. In my case, talking about technology, I really like this platform, which is called Nearpod. Actually, Nearpod is pretty good. If you know about it, I I can say that it's a good option for your classes. If you haven't heard about it, so look for that one, which is because it can be very useful for you. And finally, which is something we are facing, and we are even getting sick of a teacher job we need to do, teacher duties that we need to do in our jobs. Okay, so it's not only teaching classes, it's not only evaluating exams, so it's planning at home to do something, and maybe trying to fill up a our students when they have special needs, or well, we have extra work to do, and that can be control that. So to talk about it, just to mention some important details. Okay, so limited resources, so teachers need to be creative with their lesson plans to make the most of what's available. What about when you have a lot of students? Okay, so it's challenging, as you said before. Now, we need to address the diverse needs and learning styles of a large group. What about language barriers? As I said before, in Costa Rica, so we speak Spanish. Okay, also we have indigenous communities, and they have their own language. Okay, Spanish, and that's a problem we are facing. Actually, I work to high schools. One of those, its population, we can say that 60% it's indigenous people. So, and they have their own language, right? So, which is very difficult. About different levels of academic learning abilities. Okay, so when we have diverse student needs, so we need to and that's very important, and we need to take a look at those situations. Limited access of technology or to technology. Okay, so we know it's very important, computers, the internet, and other digital resources, but we need to find a way, alternative ways to integrate technology and adapt their teaching methods. And finally, the demands of managing a large class with limited resources can take a toll on teachers' mental and emotional well-being. And that's a problem. And that's why, number one, when I was talking about supporting each other. So, adequate support and professional development opportunities. Okay. So we can have training, so we can share our experiences with more teachers, and we can have access to meetings like this to learn from more teachers. And that's something important we can do against those situations. Okay, so with the next one. Okay, so what innovate strategies and resources effective in teach and there you have from number 1 to number 9. So let's talk about them a little bit. Okay, collaborative learning. Okay, remember in this case, you were mentioning about teamwork or work in groups, and that's necessary. Okay, so I have a 50 students in my class, so let's make groups of 5. Okay, so that can be a very useful for a teacher to walk around monitoring what they are doing. So, and that's actually that teachers use in their classes. Here, assigned students to work in pairs and small groups, okay, where stronger students help teach their classmates. So we already know we have students with different levels, but we need to take advantage from the excellent ones in our subject. Okay, so here I have well, I am the teacher, but you are excellent at this subject. So help your classmates, help your group. So in that way, that can be a good strategy, okay, to recognize what kind of students can help you in the class. Use of local and recycled material, okay. It's this one was very useful for me. And actually it's very useful, and that's the one that's about my mini project will be about this part materials. Okay, so you don't need to print out anything. Okay, so you cannot worry about, I don't have a printer, so what am I gonna do? No, you can think about recycled materials, real life objects. Okay, and that's meaningful for students. For example, if you are talking about a how to in real life objects, so it's going to be meaningful. You're going to learn a lot from that technique. Interactive techniques. In this case, think about questions they are going to discuss about with a partner, and they are going to share their ideas, and also they can have the opportunity to make a one, you are going to talk about this. Group number two, you are going to talk about this. Group versus group number two, if you want to make a debate about something. Visual or audio, okay? Using posters, recorded lessons. As someone typed, so I look for videos that can help me in my classes. Okay, not only techniques, why not exercises already made by someone? So you can use those audio record in your lesson. And why not native speakers? And why not you can even record yourself, and that can be very useful for your students, listening to different accents. Is talking about English. A low tech in that case, so I suppose we do have a whiteboard in our classes. With that, maybe pasting or putting on, sticking some flashcards about the content, that can be very useful. So we can talk about worksheets also for the students. We can take advantage of community resources as well. Okay, now we are going to have this special guest. Okay, so let's pay attention to what this person is going to tell you about this. Or maybe that person just wants to introduce. Okay, so let's pay attention. They are having that relation with a real life situation environment, talking about English. Okay, so one person is saying something and they are understanding that, and that can be about the content you're developing in the class. Resources You can mention field trip. You can organize field trips to your community, or why not to places which are pretty far away from students are going to learn many things, and they can, at the end, they can have even a presentation about what they saw and what they learned in that field trip. Interactive and physical activities. Or when you ask your students to make a role play, or when you play different games, for example, bingo, okay, which is a game that you can use with that innovate classroom management. Okay, so how you are motivate our students. Maybe if you arrange your class, okay, in a different way every single day, that can be motivated for your students. Okay, why? Because your students will see something different in your class. Okay, it's not the same. So because my mom told sit here, or just in the back of the classroom, or in the front, so they can sit everywhere, and they can have a different sitting arrangements in the class, and that can be motivated for students. And also be clear with rules and routines. Okay, so we are going to do this. I always tell my students, okay, so we have time for everything. It's very important to do this first. Okay, so I need to explain this. I need to work on this. You need to make this presentation. You are going to do that. If we have time, so whatever you want at the end. Okay, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but we need to achieve these goals. So I have these objectives. If we work together, if we work quietly, if we work in a good way, so at the end you can do whatever you want. So, and that can be a good agreement with okay. And number 9, which is important, student-centered approaches. Now, you know, the most important element in our classes, student or students. Let's see. Let me continue. We have the magic box. That's the project I was talking about. As you can see, it's made of a recycled material. Okay, as you can see it there. And okay, and what is that for? So it addresses to phonics and phonemic awareness. So that was the main idea, how simple it is. Now, you can see some pictures and images about the materials, and maybe you can have an idea about how it works. So in this case, the was developed in order to improve the students' proficiency in the classroom when learning phonics. Phonemic is connected with the English curriculum in Costa Rica, and it can be adapted in other places or institutions. It doesn't matter the level. Why? Because it can be adapted to the level of you. How? Creating teaching materials that are low cost and easily accessible. Now, my project single sound, which is practiced. Okay, and as I said before, it can be adapted to different levels. Now, the main idea is to promote a project-based strategies for teaching large and low classes. And okay, it depending on the objective and the scope the teacher in charge of the group wants to achieve. Okay, now we are promoting cheap material, recycling materials, and adapting them to learning technique for kids in a fun and visual way. Okay, so you can take a look at those images. What about a card stock or poster board? A carton of eggs, a small styrofoam bowls, printed images, posticle sticks, and there you have silicone sticks, which is, and let me tell you how I was using this in my class. Okay, so it was created to review sounds, okay, talking about phonemic awareness. As for example, that one is from unit number 1, unit number 2, and unit number 3. As I said, curriculum here in Costa Rica. Here we have example in week 9. Okay, the objective is recognizes with sounds and a. Okay, so those are the sounds. Now, students will have the opportunity to review and practice weeks. More sounds will be added to the magic box. Okay, now at the beginning, so we review or we are teaching 2 sounds per week, okay, but we need to next week with more sounds. We need to continue. What about the previous ones? That so it's not only giving them copies, giving copies to the students and papers to teach phonemic awareness. So that can be a good option for them, and they were really happy. Now, and when did you use it? Or when you use it with your students? Well, I used this magic box at the end. Okay, when we have 10 minutes left for the break, 15 minutes. Okay, now you can start playing with this. In groups of 3, in groups of 5, it depends on how, right? So, and that's a good way to implement well, at least this strategy in your classes. Okay, so you need to know, okay, what about the benefits? Okay, and what about the materials? And what about their parents? Were they happy? Are they happy? Of course, they take this magic box at home and they start playing with them. And they are doing what they are learning at school, what they are learning at high school. And that's something that is very meaningful for students, okay? So they are learning phonics, phonemic awareness in a different way, avoiding copies and papers. Okay, let me continue with that. So what about the impact and benefits of the project? Okay, there we have cost effectiveness, environmental sustainability, creativity and innovation for both teachers and students, hands-on learning opportunities, and finally, community engagement and collaboration. not expensive. It's easy to get the materials. You can ask their parents to work with it. Also, you can work with this. It's not a task that you are going to do in one lesson or two lessons, because we need to continue with what we already have planned according to the context, to the contents we have to develop in our. Okay, that's something which is a benefit from that. And here I'm going to talk about strategies. Okay, what about strategies for that situation? How we can overcome those challenges? Then we have tips and techniques and creating a conductive learning environment. Okay, so let's see. Tips and techniques, so resources in managing large classes. Okay, so let's say that a lot of students, okay, that can be challenging, but it's still possible with some creative. For example, you can make use of low cost and free materials. Okay, there we have resources and teaching materials as well, and they are for free. Also, educational videos, that's very useful. What about when we adapt teaching methods to low-tech solutions? Okay, so we already know technology can be limited. Still effective teaching methods, okay, that don't rely on digital resources. So we can use the traditional teaching tools like chalk boards or whiteboards and even flip charts. That can be very useful. So we need to encourage our students. A working group, foster a collaborative learning environment where students can share resources, know as teachers as well. Tap into community resources. Okay, so we need to take advantage of resources available from the local community, as I said before. So we can have trips, we can have a special guest. Okay, now I was talking to a teacher from Indonesia, okay, and he told me, okay, what about if we have a let's say a meeting with my students, okay? So what time? Okay, what about the time? So at this time, I'm gonna be with my students. So I want my students to hear you speak in English. And also that you tell my students how important English is nowadays, okay? Taking advantages from your friends, okay? In different and low resource environments, teachers must make the most of what they have. This could involve creativity areas, using community resources, for example, libraries or local organizations, free educational material. There is a lot of information online. Also, engaging learning activities are essential for keeping students motivated and concentrated in large classes. Teachers can incorporate interactive and hands-on activities. For example, group discussions, the ones you were mentioning, debates, role plays, and project-based learning activities can all be effective ways to engage students in the okay. Something important, the previous slide, promoting student-centered learning, empowering students to take ownership of their learning is so teachers can incorporate student-centered approaches. Okay, and you can mention, or we can mention one more time, okay, which is very useful. Now, part classes requires, as I said before, creativity, resourcefulness, and effective classroom management strategies. And let me continue. Okay, and now to let me share a couple of ideas, okay, about these different challenges that we're facing nowadays. Teaching in challenging contexts, okay, such as the one I was talking about during this presentation, which is a large and low resource English classes, requires educators to adapt and employ effective teaching practices, okay, to motivate our students, also learning outcomes, and looking for effective resources for our class. Okay, now empowering English education offer to addressing the challenges of teaching large and low resource English classes by implementing like the magic box. Educators can create engaging and effective learning experiences for their students while maximizing limiting resources. So together we can make a positive impact on education or on English education in diverse settings. Okay, that's my presentation related to and low resource English classes. I don't know if you thank you for your comments. So, Muluk, role playing is a great way to involve and engage learners. Okay, thank you. So it says,
Hello, Eric. Mm.
Yes, is Eric still here?
Yeah, you can see him.
Okay, good. All right, thank you very much, Eric. That was a wonderful presentation. Irene, I think it's time for us to take questions. If we have any questions in the chat, you can please read it to Eric, or yeah, we can allow some members to ask questions now. At least you can take 5 minutes for that. All
Thank
right,
you, Deborah.
thank you.
Hello, Eric.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, there was a question about teacher burnout. Someone wanted some more clarification on that.
Can you repeat? I don't know. It's maybe the internet. It's not working.
So someone wanted to know, what do you mean when you're saying teacher burnout?
Burnout. It's when we have
Yeah.
a lot of job to do, so a lot of duties to do. Now, for example, we have students with different levels of learning, as I was mentioning. So we need to make a, or we need to write down a comments for those students. So each student will have a document. So we need to take time to work on those documents for those students. And that's very important. Are ready per month. So we need to think about those documents. We need exams. We need to think about a holidays, celebrations, and we need to think about how to develop a contents per month, right? Because we need a sequence of contents. So we have our syllables, and we need to respect that syllables per month or for a certain period of time. When we have a lot of work to do, that refers to burnout.
Okay, thank you. Someone else would like to know how to come up with the magic box.
Well, the magic box was a well, I was tense because I I enjoyed that process with their parents as well. And but once I used, it was amazing to see how useful it was, because that's a good way to review. Okay, so we know that we are learning a second language, and we have different sounds, and each letter has a sound. And maybe one letter, for example, letter C, and English has, or it can have different sounds according to the word we want to pronounce. And that's how it came up, uh, to have a creative way or something different to review those sounds. And actually, it was pretty cool.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. Also, I have people who want you to share some of the websites where you get audios and videos. If you can do that.
Yeah, let me see. Well, now, because I need to look for them, but if you give me a couple of minutes, for example, this one, which is here. Okay, this one. This one is live. Okay, there you have it. There. Something that it's very useful for me. Okay, actually the ones I use the most, that we have a word wall. Okay, they have very interesting word students. Okay, so when you have a projector, for example, have your students' attention addressed to that practice. And the educational platform I was talking to, it's a Nearpod. Okay, Nearpod, which is the one. And probably you know this one, that's Educa Play. Educa Play is very, it's a very useful platform. And I learned about it in a webinar from Africa. For sure, I didn't know about this one. And one which is similar to Nearpod is Erick, I think. I think it's like that. Okay, let me look for, wait a minute. Okay. Okay, and this one.
Well, thank you so much, Eric, for sharing this. I think done with the questions. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was a nice one. Thank you so much. People have enjoyed it. And I know that people will practice what you have presented today. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. I've seen your chat box. I've seen how you liked the session. Thank you for coming. Back to you. Blessings.
Okay, thank you so much, Irene, for moderating the session. Yes, if you just joined or you joined in between, we introduced Irene earlier. She's the secretary for Africa ELTA for the second time, and she has helped us to moderate this session beautifully. Thank you so much, and a very, very big thank you to Eric. Wow, from Puerto Rico, we've learned a lot from you today. From the comments, you can see how valuable this session has been. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and thank you for giving us your time and sharing from your bank of knowledge. Once again, Eric, and we hope to see you again in our next webinar for September. Yes, and I just shared something in the chat box. It's a survey. Please take some minutes to fill it. And for those on the WhatsApp group, I'll also share it on the WhatsApp group. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, and bye for now. And you can unmute your mics and just say bye so we can hear your beautiful voices before we end this session. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Gloria.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome, Gloria. Thanks again.